A dog had its limbs and mouth tied up. Shuai, who was meant to be just another nameless victim, sold off and forgotten. His fate was sealed until a chance encounter changed everything. Tied up in the back of a dealer's car, trembling with fear, his pleading eyes spoke louder than words. The van's metal floor vibrated beneath Shuai, who, a dull, cold tremor that traveled up his trembling legs and into his aching ribs. The engine's low growl was a constant background hum, a sinister rhythm underscoring the chaos and cruelty of the world outside this claustrophobic cage. Shuai, whose dark eyes barely pierced the gloom, catching only slivers of fading light through rusted ventilation holes. Around him lay other shapes, dogs like him, crumpled and tired, broken piles, some still, some barely breathing. The air was thick with scents that clawed at his senses, sharp fear, the sickly tang of dried blood, the rust and dirt that coated every inch of this metal prison. One of the dogs had stopped breathing hours ago. Shuai, who could feel the quiet, oppressive absence of life beside him, and the silence felt deafening. From time to time, the dog dealer muttered curses under his breath, or shouted through the open window at unseen others. Shuai, who flinched with every sound, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure the driver could hear it. Once, overwhelmed by confusion and desperation, Shuai, who let out a soft, uncertain bark. The punishment was immediate, a harsh smack on the ribs and a rough coil of rope tightening cruelly around his muzzle. From that moment, he learned silence was safer, and the fearful quiet became his only refuge. These dogs had names once, he was sure. They had owners, families, places they called home, and perhaps dreams they chased with bright eyes and eager paws. But here, in the back of this van, they were no longer individuals. They were cargo, doomed to a fate written by hands that never cared. Shuai, whose heartbeat was a fragile flutter, his ribs sharp beneath his fur. Hunger gnawed at him relentlessly, but deeper than the ache of hunger was the raw, aching loneliness, the desperate hope for something more than this. Then everything changed with a voice. Two voices, actually a man's and a woman's, soft but insistent, carrying a kindness that felt like a balm on his raw nerves. Their words mingled in a heated argument, a negotiation that floated down through the grated floor of the van. Then suddenly, a price was set. Then silence.
Can you stop for a moment?
What is it?
This dog, what are you planning to do with it?
Taking it to the slaughterhouse. Someone ordered it.
It's still alive. Can't you see it's trembling?
It's just a dog. I've been doing this for a while. You get used to it.
I want to buy it from you. How much?
The place is paying $200. You pay more, it's yours.
I'll give you $500. Let it go. Right now.
$500? Are you serious?
Dead serious. But let me be clear. I'm not paying to support what you do. I'm paying for this one. What you do after this is on your conscience.
You think saving one dog makes a difference? Hundreds more are still getting caught and killed every day.
I know. But today, I'm here. And today, this one is still alive. That's enough for me.
You're making me feel like I'm some kind of criminal.
You're not. I just believe it doesn't have to die. And I have the choice to stop it.
Fine, take it.
Thank you. I hope you remember its eyes. That's all.
Then light. Shuai, who squinted against the brightness as a new face appeared above him. Not harsh or cruel, but open and gentle. The eyes that met his were human eyes. Wide and kind, looking at him as if he mattered, as if he was more than cargo. The ropes binding him slipped away, replaced by hands that were soft and careful. Before he knew it, he was lifted out of the cramped cage and wrapped in something warm, something soft, arms holding him close, steady, safe. It wasn't a dream. It was his rescue. The car ride that followed was a blur of movement and gentle murmurs. Shuai, who was too weak to lift his head, but the steady rhythm of the wheels beneath the road lulled him into a haze of half-sleep. He had never known the strange comfort of a lap, the softness of a human's touch without pain or fear. The woman whispered constantly, her voice a soothing stream of sounds he didn't understand, but didn't need to. Her heartbeat was steady, a slow drum against his fur. When she cried softly into his coat, Shuai stayed still, no longer flinching. When the car stopped and the gate creaked open, the world changed again. The courtyard was small and quiet, nestled behind a modest house. Ivy climbed the brick walls, sunlight slanting through leaves and scattering patches of warmth over flower pots and fallen leaves. To Shuai, it looked like a dream made real. There was grass, soft, green grass that tickled his paws and smelled like freedom. Not mud, not cold pavement. Grass he could smell, touch, and roll in. At first, he dared not move. Set down gently on a soft blanket beneath the shade, Shuai stayed still for hours. His legs trembled with the memory of the cage, muscles weak and uncertain. His stomach growled angrily at the bowl of food placed before him, but he chewed slowly, uncertain it was safe. The hunger was fierce, but the fear of losing it was fiercer. But nothing bad happened. So he slept. When Shuai finally stirred, a deep, unfamiliar urge stirred within him. The first bark came unexpectedly, startling even himself. A pigeon had landed boldly in the courtyard, pecking at crumbs without care. Shuai watched, his heart pounding. Then, as if pushed by something deep and primal, he let out a high-pitched bark, a clear, sharp sound that sent the bird fluttering away. He stared after the pigeon for a moment, then turned his gaze toward his humans. They smiled. Shuai liked that smile. Slowly, day by day, the fear that had gripped his body began to melt away. He explored his new world carefully, sniffing corners and discovering scents he never knew existed. He found a favorite spot beneath the lemon tree, where the earth was soft and cool beneath his paws. The smell of soil filled his nose and clung to his paws as he dug with joyful abandon. His tail, once limp and unsure, began to wag, tentatively at first, then with more confidence, and finally with wild happiness. He learned what toys were, soft balls, squeaky creatures, ropes for tugging. He learned what baths were, and protested them fiercely, though he eventually surrendered to the gentle hands that cleaned him. The clink of his food bowl became a sound that promised safety, and he learned the meaning of words like stay, come, and the irresistible treat. Slowly, Shuai learned that home was not just a place, it was a feeling of safety and love. But his new life was not without mischief. At first, destruction came by accident. A slipper left carelessly by the door was too tempting, too easy to chew. He did not mean to tear it apart, but when it lay in ruined pieces, the sensation was so satisfying he couldn't resist trying again. Instead of anger, his humans laughed, a strange, joyous sound that confused him but made his tail wag. Perhaps this was a game? Emboldened, Shuai pushed the limits. Cushions were unstuffed, rolls of toilet paper shredded into long, snowy ribbons. He once dragged a whole bag of kibble into the hallway, eating until his stomach bulged. When they found him lying on his back, belly distended and expression smug, the laughter came again. The little homewrecker, they called him with love. Shuai world expanded further when he was no longer alone. Mantu arrived, a whirlwind of boundless energy and chaos, clumsy and loud, with a bark that often got them both into trouble. They became instant companions, partners in mischief, chasing each other in wild circles until they collapsed in happy heaps, tongues lolling, hearts pounding. Then came Guobao, dignified and serene. An older dog with a quiet wisdom, Guobao offered gentle guidance rather than sharp correction. Shuai was wary at first, but Guobao never snapped or scolded harshly. He showed the way softly, and Shuai began to follow, learning to walk in his footsteps both literally and metaphorically. And then there was Fatty, round, slow-moving, stubborn as a mule. Taking Fatty on walks was a daily saga. Shuai would bound ahead, tail high and proud, only to stop halfway and look back at the potato-shaped dog still parked at the door. Fatty wasn't lazy, he was deliberate. Gradually, Shuai learned patience. He learned to slow down, to nudge Fatty gently, to walk beside him instead of racing ahead. Fatty, in return, tolerated Shuai, whose youthful chaos, with a sleepy sort of grace. Together, they were a mismatched pack, a family. Seasons changed, and with them, Shuai who changed. He no longer flinched at sudden noises or cowered from raised hands, because those hands now only reached to scratch behind his ears or rub his belly. His coat grew thick and glossy, shedding fur in clouds that blanketed every corner of the house, a small price for the love they gave. He learned to ride in a bicycle basket, though he preferred to run beside it, tongue lolling, eyes bright with joy. He greeted other dogs with confident barks or friendly wags. Birthdays were celebrated with peanut butter cakes and extra treats. Rainstorms were endured curled up in warm beds, and fireworks were watched from the safety of his human's laps, his body relaxing except for one brief, startled flinch. Shuai, who had found his rhythm, his joy, his purpose. They say dogs cannot speak, but those who look into Shuai, whose eyes know better. His eyes tell stories, stories of fear endured and never forgotten, of hunger that haunted his dreams. But more than that, they tell of love, of belonging, of quiet, persistent gratitude. With every wag of his tail, he says thank you. With every gentle nuzzle, every paw pressed into a lap, he says I love you. And when his humans look back into those eyes, kiss his snout, whisper his name like a sacred promise, they say it too. You're safe now. You're home.